OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
Hubble, bubble, toil and trouble. It's that time of the year where we engage our crystal balls. They didn't have a crystal ball, the three witches, but I couldn't think of something. Who does have crystal balls? Does anybody? How are your balls? How are your crystal balls, Nathan?
Oh, what is the appropriate answer for this early of the morning?
Full of Christmas cheer, I believe.
Exactly.
It's strung out at this point.
Overflowing with Christmas cheer.
Well, I mean, obviously, this is the day before New Year's Eve, so we're kind of looking back and saying goodbye, and maybe we've all come to work to escape the Christmas cheer.
Well, we have spent 9 months now with our families, day in, day out, so actually, this is really no different. It's been the best preparation ever for Christmas.
Listen, the last time you accidentally spent a bit of time with your family, you ended up with a new baby. Is there something you want to tell us? Are you breaking news here?
Most certainly not.
Three and out.
Done and dusted.
Adrian, Barry, how are your crystal balls?
They're good. I can only think of the Crystal Maze. What was the guy's name? Baldy guy?
2 channels. Never saw it.
You never saw the Crystal Maze? Richard.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right track.
Can I just hang on a second? We had 2 channels not register. You never saw this thing that was on these other channels. No, that's the whole point of having 2 channels. List off anything you want, and you can be increasingly amazed that the stuff that was only on BBC was unavailable to us coaches.
I think it was Channel 4 actually, but that was like, we're talking about mid-90s.
Richard O'Brien.
This is not like 1970 when you were born. This was like the mid to late 90s.
What? I mean, unless you had those illegal stuff that they put up in Donegal, you didn't get it. You had to get a satellite.
Oh, we had that. Did everybody not have that?
No.
That wasn't illegal.
It was totally illegal. It was a
Pipe TV. We got Pipe TV.
Hang on a second. This is a little bit of Irish history. It was completely illegal to the point where somebody got elected as a TD, I'm pretty sure in Donegal, to protect their rights to have a legal TV. It's like MD something or other. Look into it. It's an amazing story. Anyway, we got sidetracked. Poor Eoin is like, what are these old men talking about? What the hell is wrong with them?
I do have one question. What is the reference here that the rest of us are on the outside looking in about to do with families being locked away and Nathan having kids? What's the story here? What's the anecdote here that Ger...
He said 9 months, and look, you know, I just wanted to draw that parallel. Okay. It's probably more appropriate for a dadcast bit where... where all the kids are always accidental, Eoin, or, you know, in this great style of religion, a virgin birth, immaculate conception.
Well, congratulations on the virgin birth, Nathan.
Okay, thanks, Eoin.
Okay, shall we start again?
Wow, we're saving the worst for last this year.
Happy New Year, everybody! Happy New Year! The show's over. Go home. Don't watch anymore. Okay, this is the bit where we polish our crystal balls and we see what picture emerges in them. Somebody must have a good crystal ball analogy from pop culture along the way, right? Somebody somewhere has one. Silence. That's what I like. That's
absolutely no.
That's the type of collegial atmosphere. And you know what? Screw you all, because I beat you last year. That's why you're all pissed off. Is because last year I came along and just dropped my truth bombs in the crystal balls. Mine were polished, the clearest. My vision was the best, and I won. I have the scores. Do you want the scores?
Oh,
present them, Ger.
Channeling South Park. I like that. Eoin, last 1 out of 8. Well done, Eoin.
Oh.
You know,
Well, nothing happened this year.
A lot happened. I mean, when we look back, I mean, okay, tomorrow we have a show looking back on the highlights of the year, Eoin. A lot happened. It's really worth tuning in for. Good forward selling. Second, joint last. Nathan Murphy, also 1 out of 8.
Oh, pathetic. Was it the same one, Ger?
I don't know. I'll get to them in a minute. I don't think so. Adrian, 2 out of 8. A quarter, twice as good as the lads, but also crap.
Double the score, Ger. Double the score.
A failure, I believe, 25%. Do they give an NG anymore, or is it like, oh, well done, you participated and showed
Double
up?
the lads, top of the class.
Congratulations for making it into your exam on time and writing your name correctly. 4 out of 8, a solid 50%.
Well, hold on a minute. You're looking at the wrong results. You're looking at the 2019 results, not the 2020 results. You're looking at the wrong crystal ball. Yes, you won it when we did this 12 months ago because you predicted the right results for 2019. You haven't even read out the 2020 results.
Where are the 2020 results? Oh, no one's tabulated them. No one has tabulated them, so we'll have to work it out as we go along. I mean, you just can't get the help these days, Owen, it turns out. Should we start again? Should we start again?
No, hold on a minute. If I'm being left out to dry for the moment 5 minutes ago, you're being left hang out to dry right now. No question. We power on. The 2020 Crystal Ball, which we recorded on January 10th, 2020, included a number of different things. Liverpool going unbeaten, for example, was one of the questions.
Okay, I'm going to get to them. No, I'm going to get to them. There's a running order. You know how these shows are put together. We go through the running order. I'm going to incorporate. Fair enough. Okay, but that can be the mystery of who won last year. That's one of the things that did happen, Owen. Right. Will Liverpool go unbeaten was one of the things that we talked about. Adrian said no. Nathan said no. They were the ones who weren't dreamers. You and me, Owen, pre-COVID, thought that we were witnessing greatness. And it's true we were witnessing greatness because they were unbeaten up to the point of COVID, and then COVID came and they didn't care anymore.
No, they lost just before COVID. They lost to Watford. That was pre-COVID. Pre-COVID.
And also, how to spin a wrong answer, by the way.
Oh, don't worry. I've been practicing on that. The Champions League winners, very boring. Predict the same winner as last year. Adrian Barry, Nathan Murphy predicted Liverpool. I, a dreamer, and you, Owen, a dreamer. I went for Real Madrid. You went for Barcelona. The correct answer was, of course, Bayern Munich. So that was 0. Euro 2020 we'll get to in a minute, and I'll tell you how you've all changed your minds. The Six Nations, Adrian, Nathan, me, and you, Owen, all correctly predicted that England would win the Six Nations. That was pretty easy. Stupidly, we all had the same answer as well for the Champions Cup. Who do you think you predicted was going to win the Champions Cup?
Leinster.
You all predicted Leinster. The correct answer was, of course, Exeter. The Exeter Chiefs.
Jared, did you not go for Munster or something outlandish? I remember something.
No, that's two seasons ago. When I got 4 out of 8, Adrian, that was one of the ones.
Who did you go for this time?
I went for Leinster as well. Adrian, who did you say 12 months ago was going to win the All-Ireland Football Championship? You occasionally you are a dreamer as well. You know, sometimes you like to think outside of the box.
He got wrapped up
Kerry.
in the
I went for Kerry.
The nonsensical discussion that will probably happen again around Kerry and this incoming golden generation, which is the most overblown load of nonsense there has ever been. But let's get onto that later.
Yeah, don't waste your good lines now. I too was sucked in by the Kerry dream, and so fair enough. In terms of the hurling, Owen, you and me, we were, I think it might have been an emotional hedge, but we went for Cork. How'd that work out?
That was a very emotional hedge.
Yeah, not good. The Masters, again, I would have expected a little bit better from you, Nathan. You went for Brooks Koepka. How did he get on?
He on the Sunday he was, it was about 5 minutes where it looked like he might go on a run, but didn't happen.
Oh, they talk about this incoming golden Golf Weekly podcast. Absolute most overblown thing I've ever heard in my life. What a load of nonsense. Brooks Koepka. Embarrassing prediction.
You went for Brooks Koepka too, Owen.
Delete that last part.
Will we start again? Adrian, you also went. I went for Tiger. Brooks Koepka. I went for Patrick Reed. None of us were correct, but at least Patrick Reed gave me a bit of a run for my money. And Ireland winning gold medals at the Olympics this year. Well, we'll get to that because that is one of the things that we shine up our balls for and try and see what's going to happen. So the order of topics. Going to finish with the GAA. Going to start with football. Right, the Premier League. This is pretty boring. Everybody is predicting the same outcome. Nathan, make the case for somebody other than Liverpool, quickly. Okay, you're done.
I think Tottenham are probably the best of the rest and the most likely to put together a run in this unusual season where games are coming quickly, injuries may pile up, which makes it... I'm surprised we all went for the same because I do think it is a bit more unpredictable than obviously last year where we knew that Liverpool had the title already won by this time last year. I think the Jose factor, the intensity he's starting to bring back to Spurs, that they have the potential to go on a run and to stay right there to the very end. I just can't see Arsenal or Chelsea or Manchester, well, obviously not Arsenal, but Manchester City, their attitude doesn't look massively different this year. That's why it's very hard to make a case for them. They're not scoring any goals. So, yeah, I think Liverpool have the right manager, slowly but surely will have enough players back to get them through. it'll go down to, I would imagine, 3-4 games from the end of the season, at least this time. But Liverpool have the class and they have the experience now, so it's hard to make a case against them.
Is the case for Tottenham not flimsy enough? Are you just offering that as a listen? I have to say something.
Well, I did ask him to make the case. So
yeah, like six to first is six to first. And I know that obviously they brought in some players that are making an impact. You almost sense that Jose in some ways is too desperate to win the thing, right? Like he'd appeared at a time at Manchester United where his career was dwindling to the point that he could end up at. He might end up at Bayern Munich or he might end up at Kettering Town and you wouldn't know where he'd be in 12 months' time. And maybe we were talking at the time about, is Tottenham good for him or is he good for Tottenham? And it seems to be working out okay for them. But I think to suggest they'd go from 6th to 1st,
well,
I don't think,
but they weren't really a 6th team either. They'd had injury problems with their best players being unavailable for long swathes for different reasons. Like, they were never a 6th team. That's the point.
And Jose took them from, where were they when Pochettino left?
14th up to 6th. If you were to just go on points from when he was there, they would have finished 3rd as Jose.
Well, they were never a 14th team either.
There are two things I think that Tottenham have. One is obviously an unbelievable array of attacking talent. And if Harry Kane stays fully fit this season and if Heung-min Son stays fully fit, they're going to score enough goals to win an awful lot of games. But also, aside from them, they're not really reliant on anybody. They've got a big squad. Already they've had injuries. They change centre-backs all the time. They change centre midfield. They've got options at full-back that actually, even if they pick up injuries and for freshness, they can sort of change pretty much everybody else in that team week after week, game after game. And there's no great difference in terms of quality or how they approach a match, which I think is a huge advantage because most of the other teams are very reliant on certain players staying fit for the remainder of the season. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if they... Well, Liverpool have already had their injuries.
And prove that they can sail on through.
Are going to survive.
That is death by 1,000 cuts. That's not like we survived this week and we're grand. It's like every week it's firefighting. And let's just wait and see exactly how well they manage that over the next while. And if they do, then this is an even greater managerial achievement from Klopp's perspective than winning the title in the first place with them, because it is a depleted squad. It is unbelievably different circumstances. On a bit of a tangent here, because ultimately I think we all agree that Liverpool are going to win the league. The one thing that struck me the time that I was at Liverpool to watch a game was just how nervous even then, this was before they'd actually officially won the title, just how nervous the ground could be. It was 0-0 for a bit longer than everybody expected, and then they scored immediately at the start of the second half. But in that first half, it was a jittery place to go, and as a neutral, it was an amazing thing to watch because this was before they had consummated the deal, before they had actually managed to wrap up the league title. And it did get me thinking about where you want to go in your crystal ball. Where are you going to go first? When you can go anywhere to watch any game of any sport, what's the first thing that you're going to do? Non-work related for you, Nathan, because obviously you're going to have to go to Premier League games.
Oh, it'll be tough. First thing I'm going to do, I'll probably go to Shamrock Rovers on a Friday night with my kids, which I had got into the habit of doing, and I think a lot of people had, and they'd go with their mates and a few fathers, and we were there every second Friday, and they started to get to know the players. And yeah, I think that is what I'm looking forward to going to, and getting back into the rhythm of it, because I would worry that a lot of people who were in the rhythm of going to, whether it's League of Ireland or Leinster, Munster, even GAA games, are sort of out of it. And I know everyone feels like they're desperate to get back, but actually people are filling their evenings with other things a lot of the time now. So yeah, not very glamorous, but
I know, it's nice.
For me.
That's pretty nice. Adrian, what about you?
GAA for me, I think, Ger, I want to get back to... I've sort of slipped off going to very many Westmeath games for very obvious reasons over the last number of years. Some, but not as many as I'd like, and I'm going to get back into doing a bit more of that.
The obvious reasons being that they're no good, or that you had children? Which of these are
Well, it's themselves. And Dublin, obviously, Ger, as we both know, have had Leinster wrapped up over the last 10 or 12 years.
Between them, they've won the last 10.
What's that?
Between them, they've won the last 10.
Well, maybe even the last 15 or 16 between them. And not all 100%, 0%, but most. Yeah, I'll probably get back to trying to go some Westmeath games. Might even go to a couple of my own club matches at home that I haven't been to in 20 odd years.
Oof.
That I was looking at a bit of on the streams and thinking, geez, I wouldn't mind going to a couple of these. That sort of stuff is probably a little bit pie in the sky, but I do want to go to at least one and just check it out and see what's going on. But yeah, I would bring the young fella to a Westmeath match. I'd love to do that.
Right. Owen's staying silent.
Well, that sweet summer air, I think, will be the first smell we get when we get outside and go towards a packed stadium or towards at least a half-packed ground or whatever it's going to be. So it's going to be a summertime fixture, I think, that people will be targeting, and it's got to be GAA for that reason, wherever it is, whether it's Cork. I would love just a Croke Park in the middle of winter at the same time. National League game, under lights. I would definitely be hungry for a bit of that at the moment, but just because we're in the middle of Christmas right now. But I think in reality, it's going to be a summer option. It's going to be GAA, some brilliant provincial ground. For me, it's going to be Clarny. I'd love packed Clarny Stadium soon. Could be 2022 before we actually realistically get that. But no, like I hear what Nathan's saying as well. Have people like picked up different habits? Are people actually going to go back to what they were doing beforehand? Like different habits can also get changed as well. And I think sport is such a powerful thing that things will be fine. Things will go back to the way they will after a period of time. It's
obviously New Year's Eve, perfect time to be making resolutions. I'm going to do a couple of triathlons, like do the full sprints, obviously, and I'm going to X them in the diary because I find that as soon as the triathlon finished, I just ate my way fat again, and I've done it all over Christmas too. It's been like the slow coagulation of my arteries to the point where it's like, well, did I really do that last year? There's no way I did that. We're going to swim a mile as well at the start of this year too, so that's the grassroots type sport. But the other thing is, if Leo Messi is still at Barcelona, I want to bring my kids to see him play football. Yeah. Watching the stuff around Maradona, it was like, what? Like, why didn't you go and see him? Go and watch him play wherever you could have. Like, Messi's at the very end now, and maybe he signs for Man City, and it's like grand. But you want to see him in the new camp, and you want your kids to be able to say, yeah, I mean, I don't remember any of it, but I was there, and here's the programme, and this is the shirt that I bought that night. So, like, instead of summer holidays, which are, far probably too risky, that's what I'm going to save up and do that.
Yeah, I think Messi, a little bucket list. I think we also have to be honest, and while we want to do these things with our family and we want to introduce our children, we should also be quite real. We want to go to Croke Park in a corporate box. We want to go for pints in juries beforehand, meet all our mates, go in, half pay attention to the game that's happening on the pitch while sipping pints, and then go for more pints afterwards and still be home by 10 o'clock because we can't really afford to have a hangover anymore. That's what I want to get back to.
Yeah. Or drink a lot of red wine and go to pro rugby semi-finals and be blown away by everything you see on the pitch.
And tweet accidentally that follows you around for the rest of your life. Right, Premier League champions are going to be Liverpool, according to our crystal balls. Champions League, Eoin, you have somebody, one of your favourite managers in world football, Pep Guardiola.
I'm going for Manchester City in this year's Champions League. I think that I was half tempted to say that they're going to make a late dash to the Premier League title this year, but I think they're already a little bit too far behind. I think that there is going to be a kick from this team. I think we're starting to see it already from this team. I think that their fitness issues have been quite pronounced because of the position where they've been with Gabriel Jesus and Sergio Aguero being out. They're going to come to the boil at some point this season, and they're not going to be fighting for a Premier League title when they come to that boil. All their energies will be on the Champions League. You might say that that's probably a bad thing because they've over-obsessed with this clearly over the last couple of years. I think this is the year. I think this is when it happens. I think Lionel Messi will be joining the Champions League winners this summer in Manchester City.
Okay. Nathan, who did you go for here? It was Dortmund.
Borussia Dortmund. I think there's going to be a surprise winner this year. I think most of the regular contenders aren't as strong as they were even last year. Manchester City, even last year, weren't great, but this year have never been able to replace Sergio Aguero. Gabriel Jesus is just not up to the job, and you cannot rely on them in the knockout stages. Real Madrid, Barcelona, even Bayern Munich, I'm not convinced defensively they're strong enough to go back-to-back, and it is so difficult to go back-to-back that I wouldn't be surprised if a team, young, exciting, Borussia Dortmund side, obviously led by the brilliance of Erling Haaland, could sneak in there. My main reason for Dortmund above all else is I just don't trust any of the main contenders, the 4 or 5 general favourites. I think Dortmund, this is a year, an unusual year, where they could sneak in and nick one.
I think, Nathan, for the purposes of research, you should go and take in a game, but not bring the kids. I'm talking about like an adult scouting session to Dortmund to stand on the yellow wall and experience what that's like. That's the other thing that once the crowds are back, taking these world experiences. I can buy Dortmund. I can totally see the point you're making about the... I do feel like squad sizes are actually going to matter more, not less, as the season wears on. And so if Dortmund decides that they're not going to try and compete on the two fronts, and they're actually just going to put their eggs in the Champions League basket because they think that's a possibility this year, then I'd be up for that. I can see them doing that. And also it's going to be Sancho's last season with them. They know that. And that would be very exciting. Adrian, you've gone for Barcelona. You are a dreamer.
It's a ludicrous idea, isn't it? I actually hovered over Dortmund for a while on the same sort of logic around Haaland particularly can just, like on his day, can beat teams in his own, but I went for Barcelona. Mildly ridiculous logic, very much along the same lines as Owen, in that like they'll have no distraction in La Liga really, so that's off the table. So I'm making the case that the team are not good enough to be anywhere near winning their domestic division, but could go on to win the Champions League, and I appreciate how ludicrous that is, but it is definitely based around romance, Ger. It's based around the fact that they're hurt from the quarterfinals last year, the fact that, like you say, it'll be Messi's last season. He's desperate to win it. Is it 5 years since they've last won the Champions League? They haven't even been in a final since then. I think they'll be out to avenge the quarterfinals last year. He'll be out to avenge his Champions League reputation and their inalienable right, their birthright, Ger, Barcelona's birthright to win the Champions League more often than they have done over the last 5 years.
The last 5 years is kind of their entire history, apart from that one time when Ronald Koeman kicked it in and when Leo Messi was in his pomp, and they've underachieved at Champions League level when they've had Messi, so I can't see them fixing it at this stage. I just think
Put your money down, Ger, that's what I'm saying.
I think their form has been atrocious.
This would be, and is this a factor after Maradona's death and the questions around greatness and Messi, and that we now judge players more in Champions League than on World Cups, that like this would be Messi's greatest achievement, to get this Barcelona side, which is unquestionably the worst Barcelona we have seen since Messi arrived on the scene. In fact, the worst Barcelona side we've seen over the last 20 years, that if he was to somehow drag them to win the Champions League single-handedly, suddenly the debate is reopened again.
Yeah.
Maradona,
or maybe he's doing it.
Messi.
Maybe he's doing
Absolutely.
it to honor Maradona.
Exactly.
Well, I think last season's team that got annihilated in the semis was the worst team. They've fundamentally transformed that by playing a bunch of kids who may well turn out to be the next generation of superstars, but at the moment are 17 and 18. Like, we're not talking about 22-year-old kids here. It's like literal teenagers who are the main bulk of the attacking threat, despite the fact they've invested
And Martin
half a billion.
Braithwaite.
It's mad. It is mad. Like, they've invested $500 million in players who aren't getting in the team at the moment. So, very interesting to see exactly what happens there. I don't think they're going to be able to do it because I don't really rate Ronald Koeman as a manager. A very interesting job he's had to do in getting rid of a bunch of stalwarts, which is the perfect role for somebody who isn't a particularly good manager, who comes in, rips the whole thing apart, gets fired, and the new manager benefits from the fact that he doesn't have to deal with all the flotsam and jetsam. Bayern Munich are going to win the Champions League. It is a done deal. They're the only remaining class side in Europe who are performing at the level that we know they're capable of. The one caveat would be what Liverpool end up doing and how quickly Liverpool find some form. But I do think that Liverpool are mad into winning the league this year, going back to back, getting that emotional moment at home in front of the crowd that was denied them because of COVID, and that I don't think the squad is deep enough to withstand the threat on both fronts, or the challenge on both fronts. With Bayern Munich, irrespective of how well their defence is doing, they have the best flat-track bullies in world football from midfield forward, and that's what you need in a moment of doubt around the world where everybody has this existential dread. You can rely on Robert Lewandowski to be kicking the shit out of you, and he will be doing it for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, I'd love to see Bayern Munich play Liverpool at some stage in the knockout stages. I just think it would be an absolute classic, the way they both set up, how high they both press. It would be one of those great European nights. And if it's at a packed Allianz Arena and a packed Anfield, it's a totally different scenario. If we end up two-legged Champions League semi-final in front of empty stadiums, Champions League hasn't really caught fire at all so far this season because, again, it's just a bit weird watching it. Even compared to the Premier League, it doesn't feel as though it matters quite as much, particularly in the group stage. I'd imagine it'll be different, you would expect, when it's back to knockout football. But I just think very few teams have gone back-to-back. And Bayern at the back, Boateng, Sula, I know Alaba, there's talk around his contract. Is he fully committed? Alphonso Davies out injured. If they got a good enough left back, I think there's weaknesses there.
There definitely are.
That Borussia Dortmund can take advantage of.
Nathan, would you have any insight into how the which one the Liverpool fans would rather win more, having won the Premier League last season?
I don't know why you would think I would have any insight into that. From the Liverpool fans I talk to, I would suspect they want to win the league. They want to win the league. It brings them level with Manchester United on 20. Also, if it means that, and I'm not convinced this will happen, that it'll be a full Anfield by May, by the time the season ends, and that you'll be allowed an open-top parade down by the Albert Dock. I'm not sure any of those things will happen this season either.
Will.
But for Liverpool, the other thing is there's an element of chance in the Champions League. And Liverpool have benefited both ways to that. As much as we can predict the best team should win the league, something freakish can always happen in the Champions League.
Yeah.
So
I don't think Liverpool were the best team in the Champions League the year they won it, but that doesn't matter. They were definitely the best team in Europe last year, and they didn't win it.
So I think they want to win the league. I think they want to draw a level with Manchester United, and especially with no Van Dijk for the entire season, there will be another element of the conversation around greatness that they'll probably have answered a lot of questions if they can go back to back with the amount of injuries that they've had and the amount of setbacks and the lack of crowd and all that jazz. So I think league is still the priority. Champions League for most of those sides, with the exception of Manchester City, I think the Champions League is a bonus.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's move on. We've decided that Bayern Munich are going to win that, and you were all wrong. Euro 2020, everybody, I'll tell you what you picked last year. Adrian picked England, Nathan picked the Netherlands, me and you picked France. Oh, and we seem to be in lockstep here. We've changed from France. We hate the French now. We're all about Spain because they just had a big win. That's what I was like, who's actually playing well at the moment? Who can I make a case for realistically? And Spain was the answer. Why did you pick Spain, Eoin?
A Ferran Torres hat-trick against Germany is the thing that's giving us all hope. The fact that Germany are perhaps sticking with love is a good thing for Spain, isn't it? If they come up against them in the business end of Euro 2021, they're going to do a job on them once again. It's a question that would have been posed before the last World Cup about who you think is going to win. I definitely thought, I know it's a vastly different squad, but I definitely think that they would have had a massive chance of winning that World Cup, and I actually tipped them to win that. But the big shit show with the management before that is what actually completely scuppered them. You look at their management now, and it's in a much better place. Luis Enrique got the best out of Barcelona and that triumvirate of star attackers 5 years ago. He can get the best out of good players. That's all that international management is about.
Totally.
Spain to win the Euros.
Can we just take a little pause here to remind everybody that Spain sacked their manager at the start of just like on the edge of the World Cup because he was taking the Real Madrid gig after the World Cup. He was like, I've got a job lined up, which is the biggest tradition in world sport. He's like, I've got a job lined up. It's the Real Madrid gig. So it's the best and most important job in Spain alongside the Barcelona gig. And they sacked him because of it. And then, funnily enough, the whole thing didn't work out for them. I mean, I'm a little bit concerned now, actually, on that you brought that up, that maybe Spain aren't the best run FA in the world.
Are you not concerned? Well, they're clearly nowhere near the greatest national side we've seen of recent times of a decade ago, but you're looking at a goalkeeper that's either David De Gea or Kepa. And that's the starting point. You're, Busquets, Ramos, at the age they're at, they've got the experience, but are they anywhere near their peak? And where are the superstars? Where's the players who are going to guide this team through? Like Marco Asensio, who you would have loved to have seen develop from where he was over the last 2-3 years, has had loads of injuries.
Ansu Fati?
Adama Traore, is he going to play? Ansu Fati's injured at the moment. How much football is he going to play between now and then? Are you staking Everton on a 17, 18-year-old? When has that ever happened in world football before?
Kylian Mbappe, Pele, Maradona.
I 100% think that Spain are they even in the top 3 best squads going to the Euros next year? Probably not, to be honest with you. But it's about so much more than that in international football, and that was the really jarring thing about that result against Germany. Granted, it was just a friendly, but the fact that on paper that Germany team actually looks better than Spain, and they got hammered. It means that this Spain team are overachieving at the moment.
I hope so.
And if you can overachieve, then you've got a very good chance of winning a tournament.
Nathan's talking me out of this though here. So Nathan, Mr. I know all about world football. You go for Belgium.
I was looking at this for about an hour last night, trying to decide, and it's picking holes in every team, essentially. So last year I went with the Dutch. You'd have to imagine Virgil van Dijk isn't going to be there, so it's a totally different side. Ronald Koeman is gone, replaced by Frank de Boer. Now, I've spent a bit of time with Damien Delaney over the last few years, and you could not be backing the Dutch on the few stories you hear from Frank de Boer's time at Crystal Palace.
Can you share any of them?
No, certainly not. I think he shared them himself, but they didn't get on. basically. But no chance am I going anywhere near the Dutch with Frank de Boer and no Virgil van Dijk. And it was between France and Belgium, and I just think the quality that is there in this Belgian side, albeit with Roberto Martinez as manager, maybe international football suits him. I'm not fully convinced, but I've just come down on the side of Belgium. But it's not my hottest take.
Okay. All right. Adrian, England. Twice.
It's a pretty hot take, isn't it? England is fiery hot.
You've doubled down. Well, it's a home tournament. We know they like home tournaments.
Exactly. And I'm going to freely admit that I hadn't a Bulls notion when I picked when we did this 12 months ago. So I'm happy to hear I've gone for the same ludicrous suggestion again. The things that are kind of pulling them forward. If the Euros could have been just closed off after the group stages, the qualification for the group stages over the last 20 years, England would have won every single tournament going. Appreciate that's not exactly how it works, but they've been blitzing teams left, right and centre. So my logic is that it's only a matter of time that they start to apply some of that to actual tournament play. I think that they're a stronger team than they were when they obviously made the last four in the world a couple of years ago. I think that you have players like obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold coming into it. Kane is on fire. You have Sancho, you mentioned, Ger. You have Grealish is suddenly the greatest player that the world has ever seen. So there's a lot of things going in their favour. They love a bit of momentum. As you say, it's at home. The things that are pulling against them, it is a mildly ludicrous idea. Look, I'll grant you that. But I think the things that are pulling against them are the fact that they will end up with one of either France, Germany or Portugal in the last 16. And also that Gareth Southgate is their manager, and he seems to be going backwards from a place that at one point you thought this guy is going to be the England manager for the next 50 years. So, And also backing them, I will say, backing them will soften the blow if they actually end up winning it.
Nathan, are we right to say that English squad is one of the best in world football at the moment, or are we overrating it because we see them every week?
Probably a bit of the latter, but also it's a very split squad. So there are parts of that squad that are probably the best heading into that tournament. So like at right back, they have so many options, whether it's Alexander-Arnold, if he's fully fit, is probably the best right back in the world right now, and they've all sorts of backup options for him. Likewise, the front three, whether you can go Kane, Rashford, Sterling, Sancho, never mind throwing in whatever English strikers are in form at the time. Grealish is emerging. Henderson will add a little bit in midfield, but they are a mess at centre back. They don't have a goalkeeper. And do they have a system? Like, does Gareth Southgate, have we seen anything from England so far that suggests he's figured out what he wants to play? He's going 3 at the back sometimes. He's going 4 at the back. He's constantly changing his midfield. He didn't seem to want Grealish a month ago, but Grealish has sort of forced his hand. Where does Grealish fit into a midfield with Henderson and Rice? Is that their midfield? Declan Rice, Jordan Henderson, Jack Grealish midfield, and 3 up front. So I think they have 5-6 players who are world class, absolutely world class, and the best in their roles heading into this tournament. But it feels like it's going to come to some sort of a calamitous end through their centre backs or their goalkeeper. And as Adrian said, they're in a group that's not a particularly appetising group for them, because they've got Scotland, which is just going to be carnage, you would expect.
No, they'll hammer Scotland.
They should be far better than them.
Scotland rubbish.
Croatia, albeit I know people say not where they were 2 years ago, will prove more difficult than England expect. And then, in all likelihood, they're coming to Dublin for that last 16 game against one of those sides that Adrian went through. So
about our decision, our support for supporters in grounds, can we have supporters in grounds in all games except when England are coming to Dublin? Would that be... Can we sort that out?
I bought my tickets for it, so bring it on. Could be the best game I get to see all year.
Okay. I mean, it should be
bought tickets.
Good game.
Bought tickets, yeah. So part of me is hoping that no crowds will be let in and refunds will be forthcoming for the €500 I spent. So there was €250 on England against Germany, potentially. God damn it if it ends up in like Scotland against somebody. But the other one that I've now also spent £125 a ticket on is Poland. Is it Poland against Slovakia?
All right. Well, Pavel will take those.
Very excited about. Great.
And I'm sure he'll pay more face value for that. You wouldn't charge any more than that anyway. Well, you probably anyway.
Certainly not.
Right, let's move on. So the Euros, Adrian thinks England's going to win. Myself and Eoin thinks Spain. None of us feeling very confident about that. Six Nations. Right. So I had a look at the fixture list here, and England play France in Twickenham. And so I went for England on that basis. Adrian's gone for England, Nathan's gone for France, and Eoin has gone for England. Notable here that nobody has picked Ireland.
Okay,
Yeah, and it could be the year. This is the year to back Ireland, really. Like, I don't know, is it going to be a situation where they somehow pull a rabbit out of a hat? But if you're going to back them in any given year, it might be a situation where they do it when we least expect it. Like, they came relatively close this year, let's not forget, where the mood music was not good around the camp, and they were in with a shout of actually winning the thing on the final day of the competition, which is actually kind of mad when you think about it, that Wales were that bad that they allowed us to hockey them to the point where we put ourselves into contention down the business end. We got beaten quite comfortably by England, and still on the final day had an opportunity to actually snatch the Six Nations from them. I just think that there is such a chasm between Ireland and France and England that is actually going to materialise itself in a bigger gap on the final table next season and into 2021. I just can't see them overturning it. But they have done stranger things in the past. When you least expect it, they might come up with a couple of big performances, and all of a sudden everything is rosy in the garden again.
Not for me, Ted. I think that Ireland are going to be pretty happy with finishing third in next year's Six Nations, because we have to go to Scotland and we have to go to Wales. And I just feel like
France and England at home.
Those games are 50-50. Yeah, good chance that England hockey us at Lansdowne Road like they did the last time. I think, look, if you can fast forward and tell me that so Tuolagi's going to be out for that game, but is Billy Vunipola going to play in that game? Because if he is, then I think it doesn't really matter. If England have their power game, if Maro Itoje continues to be the best player, certainly in his position, the best forward in the Northern Hemisphere, and then you're starting to make arguments for him about being a dominant player in the world, and he's cresting to this peak where he's expected to be a Lions captain. To do that, he's going to have to put in a big performance against us, and we've got nothing at the moment. Nothing that you can point to give you a sense of hope and excitement about that. The team could largely be a team that Joe Schmidt would have picked, except without the fastidiousness and the attention to detail that hallmark those teams. So we're stuck in transition period, and transition periods always have to have a complete low before they start to build up again. That's my concerns about where we are, and I think England are best placed at the moment to continue on where they are, because they're actually building on strength at the moment, as opposed to trying to rip stuff up. Eddie Jones has a very quite boring to watch template until they get the ball to Johnny May, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, this is actually electric. So that's my case for England.
I think there's almost no case. Like, if we're sitting here making a case for Ireland, it's based on if, ands and buts. And like, as we sit here at, what are we, I lose track of days, at the end of December. I think it's...
The 30th of December.
30, yeah, I always lose track of...
Wednesday, the 30th of December, Adrian.
It's like,
are there not a lot
like,
of ifs, ands and buts, though, that are quite easy to go through, Adrian? So England last time came with their pack pretty much locked and loaded. Like, it was...
I'm saying that if we're making a case for Ireland...
Are there a lot of buts that are easy to go through? There are. Come on, let's go through the buts.
If we can do this, or if we can improve here, or if it's based... That's what I'm saying, that any case for Ireland is flimsy. But you can't see past England. Like, Wales are at obviously an all-time low themselves. Do France... France could well do something. I wouldn't be overly surprised on that front, but England looked like a team that can bully anybody off the pitch, and it's impossible to back against them.
What about if Tadhg Furlong is back and Dan Levy is back, has played enough rugby over the next sort of 5-6 weeks?
So you're saying
that
parts of the jigsaw are fine.
No, I don't. I don't even think this is a transitional period for Ireland. I think this is a period of real struggle where there's just not the talent there to replace the world-class talent that is getting older. Who are the players you're waiting for? Who are the players you're looking at that over the next 2 years you think, oh, all they need is a bit of game time, and then they'll be truly world class?
Baird, Max Deegan, Will Connors, De Burns, there's loads of them.
Really? Are they at the level of a Heaslip, O'Brien, O'Mahony at their best?
I don't know. No,
game time.
Sean O'Brien was legitimately world class. He could have played for the All Blacks. Not that many players that we have at the moment are in that category. Sean O'Brien is like an all-time Irish great player. Like, there's... And we don't really appreciate that, but he's all-time Irish great, and he's one of the great Lions players ever. The notion that we can find somebody who's going to be just as good as him, I think, is like not true. I think it's like we have anointed several successors to Brian O'Driscoll at number 13, and no one has actually come close to the level of of regular 9 out of 10s that he was producing. Like, so Ringrose is a really good player. Henshaw's a really good player, but they're nowhere. They're actually not at Brian O'Driscoll's level at all.
I will say, like, Brian O'Driscoll is without question our greatest player of all time, and like in the top 5 players to have ever played the game internationally of all time. So even he is a step above Sean O'Brien, I would say. But like, and look, we don't know, but certainly the evidence we've seen from players like Deegan, particularly Harry Byrne, by all accounts they're talking about, is, and look, it's again in the if, ands and buts. And Ryan Baird is one that people who know about second row play talk about and been that this guy is going to be a big deal. So, like, if we say, are there the possibility that there are players coming up there that can rival those players that Nathan mentioned? Like, there are. Can they see it out? Who knows? But I think there's certainly that potential. But interestingly, Nathan's placing no blame at all on the coaching ticket. It's get the best players back and we'll be grand.
There's clearly massive questions over Andy Farrell and Mike Catt. And I'm thinking back to Declan Kidney and trips to Scotland in, was it 2013, when it all went to pot and Ron O'Gara's having that crossfield kick, and there's in the transitional period, there's the catastrophe and they decide to have to change. Like, if this goes badly wrong, do Ireland have to have a complete rethink about what this transitional period is? Like, does Andy Farrell get through a bad Six Nations?
I think so. I think that when you appoint a rookie head coach to an international gig, you owe him the opportunity to make the mistakes, and also then to say that actually you need to try what it is. So you need the time and the game time and the access to the players to get the team's identity going. That hasn't happened yet. There's no one can point from outside the camp anyway and say, I understand exactly what we're trying to do. I see where the game plan is evolving. That hasn't happened yet. They need to be able to get a Six Nations where they've had access to the players and it's like proper contact training and whatever it is that we'll be able to do in a post-vaccine world. And I would say, they've got to give him this year. They've got to give him this whole calendar year and then say, right, you need to start winning now.
Yeah, I think that's the fairest thing. I'm just wondering what sort of pressure. And again, when Ireland are going to Scotland and Wales, what is a bad Six Nations? So you need to win. Do you need to win beating Scotland and Wales? Is that a good Six Nations?
You need to finish third, because the prize money is £1 million per position after that. And I always thought this didn't really matter because the IRFU were sitting on massive amounts of cash, and they were. They had a site out on the Naas Road in City West that they sold 18 months ago, and we're sitting on that cash, and then that cash obviously got depleted because of COVID. So all of a sudden, where they finish in the Six Nations is actually your job. Your KPIs are, bring through a certain amount of new caps and get players up to a level that are going to be ready for the World Cup. Now it's like, need bums on seats because you're playing good rugby, and we need to win. Need winning rugby. And obviously bums on seats aren't a problem for the England and France game, but you know what I mean. Metaphorically, we need to be attracting people and attracting sponsors and all that kind of stuff. So I think there will be pressure on him to win games, and I think that's actually going to slow down the long-term development of the team and potentially him as a coach. I still have faith in Andy Farrell. Maybe I'm stupid, but I think that he's going to make mistakes in the first year in the job as a head coach with responsibility for everything. And the IRFU knew that. If they didn't, that's on you, Sephora.
The one thing, just in terms of the context of this year's Six Nations that we're looking ahead to, and for the following couple of years as well, is that Andy Farrell could be an amazing coach. Andy Farrell could produce unbelievable performances. But the thing is, this England team, this France team, there's a chance that these two teams are at a way higher level than they were at any point during the Joe Schmidt era. Maybe not true for England. Maybe the last time Joe Schmidt came up against England in the Six Nations, they were also close enough to this level. But these are two nations who were going into a World Cup cycle, in the middle of a World Cup cycle, that they expect to come out the other side of with the Webb Ellis Trophy. They want to win the entire thing out, whereas our level is, let's get to a semi-final and fingers crossed we actually get there. We're operating off a different plane to these two countries for a multitude of different reasons, and I think in the context of expecting Ireland to win the Six Nations, despite the fact that they have them both at home, I think it's going to be very difficult to imagine actually happening this year. Yeah.
Nathan, you picked France. Was that just to be contrary?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much. Maybe they'll go and somehow beat England. But I agree. The other thing, again, on the players is, we're in a Lions year. If you were to compare this Irish squad to what's gone before for previous Lions tours, what Andy Farrell is dealing with, how many of these players are nailed-on starters for the Lions this year.
None, I don't think.
Yeah, and you're probably even not nailed on. You're probably looking at 2 potentials in Tadhg Furlong and James Ryan. If there's no injuries, if everybody which isn't going to happen, but if everybody goes fully fit. Is there anybody else who's really pushing for a starting place?
James Lowe might push.
I don't know. I think that...
Really?
I don't know. Johnny May ahead of him?
Look, possibly. He's in the conversation. I'm certainly not suggesting that he's a nailed-on starter. But yeah, many in years gone by.
Ringrose has a chance, depending on what style they play. Like, Gatland did go with essentially 2 10s eventually. And if that's the case, does Sexton have a chance at his age? Or, like,
Sexton will definitely be in the squad.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
And at that stage, you wouldn't back against his competitiveness and his ability to speak about the game with the coaches to get him into the team. And I think he would be brilliant to the team. So don't be get me wrong there that I don't think he doesn't deserve it. But I don't think any of them are guaranteed places. The way Tadhg Furlong would have been if he'd been fit for the last year and playing his best rugby. But even before he got injured, his form had come off the absolute peak he was at when he was the best in his position in this part of the world, and therefore in the conversation for the entire world. So I don't know. Could we see a starting Lions test team with no Irish players? Yeah, I'd say it's more likely than not.
A good Six Nations would be just finishing below England and France. I think that at this point, I think most people would bite your hand off for that.
Bite your hand off.
Where we're at now.
Right, Heineken Cup. Contrarian Nathan says, Racing 92. What is it about these Parisian and the French that you love so much?
Last year I was nailed on for Leinster, but the more you watch of the Pro 14, the more you worry that more often than not they're going into these games ill prepared. You'd expect they'll have more than enough for Montpellier and Northampton in the group stage.
South Africans are coming to our rescue to beat the crap out of us, to prepare us.
Not by the time that the Champions Cup final takes place in May. So come back to me in a year, Ger, about that. And I, from what I can tell, Leinster are the most talented team in Europe, particularly with obviously Saracens no longer really around. But they are cruising through games. There's no test whatsoever. And it does feel that when they face the big test along the way, and there's only 3 or 4 teams that could do that one of them will just take them. Whereas Racing are there week in, week out. We hear from Ronan O'Gara. It is tough, bloody work in both the Premiership and the top 14 that they're ready. So, yeah, I think, unfortunately, that's probably going to end up costing Leinster.
All right, the 3 of us have gone with Leinster. Is that just because we don't know enough about the English teams?
Yes. I'm only joking. The thing is...
Go on, yeah.
Well, just a very quick point on that. There was a lack of being road tested ahead of that Saracens game earlier this year. There was also an air of, we've hammered everybody, we're going to be able to live up to that level, relatively close to it, in the Champions Cup. That had to have been an implicit part of their psyche going into that game. It won't be the case this coming year. There won't be any room for that. Stuart Lancaster has fixed a lot of issues in that Leinster team. Can he fix a broke-down scrum, as was the case against Saracens? Yeah, I think he can. And for that reason, I think Leinster will go into this as favourites.
I think that you don't even need to know the English game in depth. All you have to do is look at how last year's knockout stages stacked up, and there's plenty of reasons to think about that. But you can make the case for Leinster on the basis of the squad that they have. We spoke about the Euros earlier on, and the contenders. They're undoubtedly one of the best squads in Europe. So on that basis, and the basis they've been thereabouts, they do know how to win these tournaments. Obviously, they just need to remind themselves.
I think, look, they're guaranteed a position or a place in the semi-finals, essentially, because of the quality of the squad that they have and the continuity of the squad that they've had. And that's really...
Sorry, Adrian, can I just ask then, for this current Leinster side, with all that emerging talent you've talked about, how do they compare to the greatest sports team we have ever seen?
Well,
what year was that?
It was more about the greatest sports...
2 years ago?
/franchise/province.
No. That's not what the tweet says. That's not what the tweet said. After that game against Cardiff. Was it Cardiff?
It might have been Clonettley, I think.
Right, even better.
Or was it Ospreys, actually?
Will Ireland, moving on swiftly, for the discretion of everybody involved, will Ireland have a golf major winner? I say yes. Adrian says yes. Owen says no. Nathan says no.
Rory's going to win the Masters.
Great golf minds tic-tacking once again.
That's what we're looking at next year, surely. Has he got a newfound attitude? I see he's been back out 3 or 4 weeks ago talking about the people who've been questioning his approach to golf. But I mean, outside of Dustin Johnson's like runaway round at the Masters last year, a fairly wayward day one would have had, if he could have righted that in any way at all, even in terms of level par round, he's suddenly right in the mix there. And like a Rory who's going for the tournament the final day is also potentially shooting better than, I know it was like one of the best rounds of the day, but shooting better than a 69. So you can't discount his and obviously the carrot at the end of it all, the Grand Slam. He knows the pressure's on. Rory for the Masters, I'm getting that specific.
Okay, right. I mean, that's a lot of ifs, ands or buts.
Not a bit of it, Jared, not a bit of it. All the evidence is there.
Do you want to start again? Right. I just have decided that rather than be negative Nelly and going, no, and actively rooting against the Irish players to win a major, I'm going to say, yeah, go on.
Not really.
One he is. You know, you are now because it's your record. Your entire reputation is staked, Eoin, to the Irish lads losing.
So why didn't you do that for the Six Nations and just pick Ireland and go, Ger's behind you, I believe in you, people are doubting? Is that what this is? A sort of motivational pep talk for certain people along the way?
No, it's just how do I want to watch the golf majors? Is it in the back of my mind going, I'm going to be embarrassed on New Year's Day again like I was last year when I voted for Brooks Koepka?
Well, listen, Shane Lowry could go and win the Open at Royal St. George. He's still the defending champion. There was an Irish winner there the last time when Darren Clark. I've heard this conversation around McIlroy. Clearly, McIlroy is the talent to go and win a major this year. But this thing of, well, if this had happened, he would have been in contention at the Masters. It's golf. Everything else only happens because of the first round where he's not in contention. There's no pressure on him whatsoever over the next 3 days. He acknowledges himself. He doesn't have a chance of winning. And the coming out, fighting all cylinders against the people who are talking him down, like this happens year on year. Like Rory doesn't keep things to himself. One of the things that makes him interesting is he'll come out every 3-4 months and he'll battle back. He'll stick up for himself, which is great. But we're now 6 years since he last won a major. 6 years. And the new array of talent has come. So he may sneak one. I don't go along with the people who feel he's going to get to 8-9. I think he unquestionably has the talent, and he has 10 years, probably 40, 50 more majors to go and win more of them.
More anti-McIlroy stuff from Golf Weekly is what
I would love to see McIlroy win it. I think there's no question of his talent. There's probably questions now more than ever about his temperament and his desire, which he can come out and talk the talk. I think he needs to go and walk the walk with that. All these players are contending week in, week out. Major after major, it's the same 5 or 6 people over the last few years who are there, including Brooks Koepka, who may go and win the Masters next year. Who knows? McIlroy is generally not one of them. Like the likes of John Ram, Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas have a level of consistency that McIlroy just doesn't have right now.
Well, hang on. Sorry, McIlroy has a consistency of playing his way into the top 10 on the final day when it's kind of irrelevant. So he's super consistent. Backing McIlroy to finish in the top 10 is a safe bet. You'll get your money back at least and maybe make a little bit of profit. But you won't get any enjoyment on Thursday, Friday or Saturday. It's Sunday when he shoots a low score of the day. And so look, I don't know who is our best chance of winning a major in this year. You'd say it probably is McIlroy, but at the same time, I mean, unquestionably, he's not the most recent major winner that we have. So
no, but I still think Shane Lowry himself would admit that McIlroy's best is on a different plane. But Lowry has shown that. Yeah, listen, he can win a major.
Yeah.
Ray McDowell has shown he can win a major. There's no reason why Lowry can't get himself into contention at one of these and go and win one. But I think if you're looking at 100 golfers who can win a major this year, you would have McIlroy ahead of Lowry.
No, sure, but I'm just saying I actually think Lowry's a good chance. A golf door question, which obviously that's you, Nathan. What's the story with Ryder Cup qualification? When does that all close? How are they fixing that?
So it's starting again. May have already started at sort of a low level with some of the tournaments that are there. But January, I saw Shane Lowry in the last couple of weeks talking about his calendar, and he's going to Hong Kong and he's going to play that Middle Eastern swing where there's going to be a lot of Ryder Cup points at stake. So, yeah, from January on, it is sort of your regular season as much as is possible with the European Tour now. But, yeah, a lot of points at stake. Everybody's starting from zero. So Lowry has a lot of work to do. I think he recognised that. It's unlikely.
Everybody starts from zero, so there's no hangover. Sorry, I didn't realise that. That was the point I was asking.
Maybe starting from zero isn't the correct term because there have been tournaments in the last few weeks that have
We're into a
counted.
bit of Nations League. Hang about.
Hold up. Nations League, I can explain. The main thing is Shane Lowry is going to have to play very well this year to qualify for the Ryder Cup. All the points, all the world ranking points, the two different tiers they use in European Tour and world ranking points are basically going to be decided this year. So Lowry knows he's probably going to have to win a tournament.
Stop. This is a great insight into how Nathan parents is like his kids come and ask him a question. It's like, well, the main thing is something over here is happening that we all need to pay attention to right now.
Let me Google it.
It's OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Will Ireland win a gold medal at the Olympics? Again, everybody. There's a significant change in this. I think this might have to do with the pandemic. I'm just looking last year. Ireland gold medal at the Olympics. Adrian, no. Nathan, no. Me, no. Owen said yes last year. Are you sticking with yes?
I'm sticking with yes. I actually think I'd be less confident 12 months on, so I don't know why you guys have all changed your minds given...
I'd say primarily because we forgot what we put down 12 months ago.
I said yes.
No, you didn't. You said no. Educate me, folks.
I'm looking at the email I sent you. Will Ireland win a gold medal at the Olympics? Yes.
In 2020?
Are you talking about this year or 12 months ago?
Oh, you're talking about last... Oh,
last
sorry.
year you said...
Last year, yeah.
You've changed your mind, Nathan. That's what happened.
So I said no last year, but I'm saying yes this year.
Will we start again, hon?
All right, go on.
Tell me why you changed your mind, Nathan, between the 2 years, like.
Maybe I've seen and heard a lot from our Olympians sort of over the lockdown, and they're quite refreshing attitude, and I'm just a bit more positive about life right now. So I believe that Kelly Harrington will get what she deserves and get an Olympic medal, hopefully a gold medal. One of the rowers is surely going to win a gold medal, and maybe we sneak one from somewhere else. Reece McLennan, a year older.
The
Alex
pentathlon.
Murphy.
Golf, Rory McIlroy to win gold.
Definitely one of the rowers.
Larry's more chance of winning gold, I think, than McIlroy. But anyway.
Do we not think that we've been behind the 8 ball a little bit as an Olympics nation because of what happened this year and other nations getting out a bit more, their elite sport being back to normal a little bit quicker than Ireland? That if Ireland had people training abroad, they would have been fine, but people who were stuck in Ireland were stuck in Ireland and a little bit behind. Granted, it's a huge amount of time to actually make up the lost gains and all that. No, I think there will be a gold medal. I think that the big hope last year would have been Sunita Paspoor, and she's another year older, so that's why I'd be a little bit cautious.
Okay, all right. So that's everybody feeling pretty positive about the Olympics in Tokyo. Again, a reminder, OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle it ahead. Time for us to turn our attention to Gaelic Games, All-Ireland Football Championship for 2021, which we're not entirely convinced is going to be... well, we're waiting to see exactly what the crack is with dates and stuff for this. But anyway, I'm saying Dublin, Adrian's saying Dublin, Nathan's saying Dublin, and Eoin is saying Kerry.
Come on.
What
sort of weird form of reverse Yera-ism is this?
Like the absolute... Like there is a Kerry man with a tent in your head, basically, living there, sleeping every single night, Nathan. There is no way that anybody can talk about this county without it being some sort of psychological trick on you. I just don't understand.
Wait, I've just thought about this. Is this actually mark a sea change in Irish life? That goal from Mark Keane against Cork, was that actually the end of Yera-ism? That Yera-ism actually finally, it came true. He had talked up the fact that Cork could do something when nobody believed it. They did it. And now you're sort of stuck in a flux of, well, what do we do? Like, Yera-ism is all out of kilter. We can no longer talk ourselves down.
Need a bit of time to process all the information that I'm taking on here.
Is the whole point of Euroism not that you're out at the end of it either way? Asher, we said Cork were great. Is that not the whole point of it?
No. The point is to win always.
You're all right. I'm going to be right next year. Back with a vengeance. They're not going to get caught next year. That's for sure. Peter Keane, one last hurrah to save his job as Kerry manager. Everybody's in it for their own selfish reasons. Everybody's in it for their own collective reasons. It's a great team. We know that. They pushed it up to an All-Ireland replay last year. They beat Mayo by 10 points last year. Mayo claimed that there was potentially the second best team in Ireland. If you look at my power rankings, they are nonsense. I mean, the only team who beat them by 10 points last year were Kerry and the Dubs. And we've seen the gap this year as well. So I think Kerry are going to be back next year with a bit of hunger. And let's be different. Let's be different from the Dubs. Of course, the likelihood is that Dublin is going to win it next year. But I'm going to give
that's
anybody
what this is about.
going to be Kerry. The big, no, I'm saying
exactly
they're going
the
to upset the odds. I'm saying they're going to upset the odds. You can look at the shortest odds if you want, Nathan, and make sure that is your pick for every one of these categories. But that's not what this is about. It's about, what does your gut tell you? My gut is telling me that Kerry are going to win the All-Ireland.
Your gut's telling you you've had too much drink and chocolates over Christmas.
Yeah.
Fart
Is
it
this
out there,
not
Eoin.
the sad reflection? Is what you're saying not the sad reflection that we can go through all these sports, all these great sports from around the world, yet none of them is as nailed on. I'm sure the odds reflect this. None of them is as nailed on as that Dublin are going to win the All-Ireland Football Championship next year.
And the year after, and the year after, and so on and so forth, and ever word without end, amen. So the Dubs have, my big hope for some levelling off of the competitive playing field was that the great players would leave and they would filter away, and the new players coming through wouldn't quite be as good. They'd just be a little bit behind. Functional, obviously, and coming into a winning system, so therefore it's easier for them. But actually that hasn't been the case so far. They've managed to... Connolly goes, and as Connolly goes, Con comes in, and now Con is cresting to, best footballer in the country. They'll have Jack McCaffrey back next year. Kieran Archer hasn't played for the senior team yet, and he might be the best young forward that they've had for ages. Not to mention Sean Bugler seamlessly getting into the side this year, and I don't think that we have seen the absolute best of this team just yet. I think we're looking at 9/10/15 in a row. And my hope for Kerry was that there would be enough gumption, but there wasn't enough. There just wasn't enough last year. And how many of those players are actually going to reach a level that's higher than the level that they reached in 2019 when they managed to draw with Dublin and choked down the stretch?
Cluxton obviously is one. That's Cluxton, whether Cluxton stays on or not, feels to be the one sort of caveat to Dublin. And like you said, Ger, maybe even that's not as much of a consideration as it might have been even 2 or 3 years ago. The player comes in, has been watching this guy in action, they've got a game plan, it just copies over to the next robot that comes in and sort of takes the ball to within whatever sort of 2-metre circle it needs to go to in any given kick out, and life carries on. But I mean, it's again, no more than the point about England, the Six Nations, it's like, I mean, you can make a case for another team. It just feels like the juggernaut are just going to continue and continue.
And that's what we do. That's what we spend, this winter doing or the summer doing, is talking about Kerry, Mayo, Tyrone, talking up the positives of those teams, the players that are emerging. And because it's so straightforward for Dublin, we don't actually spend much time just luxuriating in the awesomeness of what they are, what they've done, the quality of players. And because it looks so easy, it's very hard to actually compare and have that conversation of Con O'Callaghan or David Clifford, because Clifford is tested all the time and has to drag his side through sometimes. Whereas if Con doesn't play well, somebody else will do it. Whereas there's no reason to believe that Con O'Callaghan isn't the match, isn't the generational type player that David Clifford is. They are just... It will be the shock of next year if Dublin don't win the All-Ireland.
Yeah, and it will be the shock of any year now from now on, the way that the process has been industrialised by them. And the one hope would be that Tyrone, under their new management team, finds a way to release the attacking potential that team has. And I can't wait to see Tyrone play Dublin in a big game with McShane fit and everybody else actually at the level that we think they could be at. I mean, Conor McKenna could be a generational talent as well.
Can I just challenge that just for a sec? So you think that because of Conor McKenna coming into that Tyrone team suddenly can challenge Dublin?
I hope. I don't think.
But I think this is what I'm talking about. We do this and we can talk up and talk up and talk up. All of these sides. Still, Dublin have 6 of that players. Dublin have 6 Conor McKennas, if not more.
Maybe not. Conor McKenna could be as good as Con. There's not that many as good as Con. He's that good. They might have 6 McShanes, in that McShane and Rock are as good as each other, and they're both absolutely brilliant. But it's our hope is that McKenna is an all-time great, so he can somehow wrestle competitiveness into that process. But you were going to get out to me about that, Eoin, because what was your
Well, I just think that if we're looking into teams that have come close, so it's two, that Mayo team that managed to do it in the middle of the last decade and Kerry in 2019. Tyrone haven't come into that conversation at any point.
No.
They proved to us that they had that opportunity in the All-Ireland final that they couldn't do it. So is one player going to be the person that takes them from also-rans to being a contender to Dublin? I don't think so.
No, it change of style is the thing. The new management team has to be the thing that kicks them on to that next level. And that's completely unproven. We haven't seen what they're capable of doing just yet. So the All-Ireland Hurling Championship,
could we apply, Ger, one last point in the football, could we apply for a 33rd team to enter the championship made up of Australian rules, reconverts only? So we just make up a team, we put Colin Reardon, McKenna, Keane, etc. into it, and we engender a team to beat the Dubs.
It'd be a good team. I mean, I think some kind of pick of the losers would be a good kind of, okay, you won the All-Ireland, but you're not getting the trophy until you beat this pick of the rest. That'd be a good game.
It's like
you need to advertise it a bit better.
Pick of the losers.
The pick of the losers.
The White Walkers coming over the Great Wall.
That's a very 2019 reference there. Did you just start watching the Game of Thrones? Have you just caught up?
No, the Crown. I'm onto the Crown.
Right, the All-Ireland Hurling Championship. I too am a dreamer. I've gone for Waterford. Owen, you've gone for Wexford. Adrian, you've gone for Limerick. Nathan, you've gone for Limerick. That's boring. Going for Limerick, it's obvious. It's boring. What are you going to do?
What's the case for Waterford? That they've come from nowhere. The trajectory is just going to continue on up over the next, 8-9 months.
I think the case is that they have a couple of players to come back, and that the players that they got back this year are going to stay back. The fact that they convinced Hutchinson to play this year and that he's been so spectacular is, I think, important. It speaks of a management team who has shaken every tree and made the case and now have a pathway. The fact that they've got players fit, I think the lockdown is going to have a big impact in future about how we treat GAA players, and saying you should have 2 months off every year where you do nothing, and there's going to be longevity on the back of that. The strength and conditioning analysis of what this year and the impacts of it are longer term are going to be very interesting, I think. By the by, I think Waterford handled that quite well. I think they have a manager who's got a chip on his shoulder for not getting the Tipperary gig, and it suits Waterford to have a bit of a chip on the shoulder. It suits this group of players that he's the next phase of what they needed after Derek McGrath and his pastoral care. And I just feel like there's enough talent there, and the age profile is right. I can make the same case, I think, probably for Clare and for Cork, and depending on what happens with Kilkenny, for them, and for a Tipperary side who can't go back to back, and the pain they feel. But I like the case more about Waterford than I do about those slightly.
Yeah, I think it's a good shout, and I really like the tip shout as well next year, because they can't go back to back. Proven last year that in a knockout game they're always a team you would put your money behind. I think Wexford actually have a shout next year. I think they were so bad this year, and you would definitely worry about the sight of Tony Kelly running rings around them. If one player can do that, then really they were at 6s and 7s for that. But I just think the level they were at in 2019 was incredible. I think that Davy had got them to play out of their skins, and this unbelievable savagery about them, where I think will take them to the next level, where I think next time during a semi-final against Tipperary they will win. I think the experience of that game is something that they haven't put into practice yet, but next year if they get the chance to do so, they're going to be a dangerous team to come up against. Okay,
the case for Limerick is they're the best and could be the new Dublin when it comes to hurling.
Sometimes what's easy is what's right.
You're just trying to rack up some easy wins here. I get that. I understand it.
Is Eoin actually backing Wexford?
Yeah, he picked them.
Being a bit different, you
One
know
of the maddest calls of this entire thing.
Like Mr. Prefect. Were you a prefect in school? Would you tell on your?
I was actually at one point. Yeah.
What's correct isn't always different.
That was predictable.
So yeah, Wexford's such a ludicrous call. Are
they in the top 5 teams in the country?
We gotta go. I'm getting the look. We gotta go. Right. Thanks very much for joining us for our annual Crystal Ball this morning. We hope we've polished and shined them up and you've seen into the future. We're live every morning with thanks to Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the morning ahead. Join us again tomorrow morning, where we're bringing you our 2020 time capsule. And contrary to what Owen Sheahan says, there was loads of great stuff that happened this year. We will bring it all to you, same time, same bat channel, OTB Sports Radio. See you tomorrow. Bye.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.